Hey guys, Steve from Downshift Bikes here. Today we're going to talk about a tubeless conversion and the tools that you need and how to perform a tubeless conversion on a bicycle. Today we've got a 700C or 29er wheel from Alex Rims with a Surly Nard tire on here. We're going to talk about all the things that you need and all the steps that are involved in a tubeless conversion. Okay, so first of all, looking at this wheel setup, we've got a rim by Alex Rims and we have a tire by Surly. You'll notice that the description of the tire doesn't say tubeless anywhere, neither does the description of the rim, and so we need to take that into consideration when we're doing this. We absolutely need a tubeless ready tire to make your wheel set tubeless. The rim is not so much as important. There are tubeless ready rims, but if a rim is not tubeless ready, typically you can make it tubeless by just adding some rim tape, and so that's our next step here. Is we're going to need the parts that we have here for the tubeless conversion. We've got a high quality rim tape. This is made by the Whiskey Manufacturing Company. They make really cool bike parts, fork stems, carbon, aluminum, and this is a really good quality tubeless rim tape for this setup. The important thing to note is the width of this tape has to match the interior width of the rim. So just log on to the website of your rim manufacturer, find the interior dimension of the rim width, and make sure you have a tape that is very, very close, within 1 or 2 millimeters of that rim width. The next critical piece to the tubeless conversion is a tubeless ready valve. This Presta valve here is actually one of Downshift's brand new products. This is an oil slick valve that we make and sell on our website. So a pair of these guys one valve for each wheel, so a pair for the set, as well as some high quality tubeless sealant. We like to use orange seal here at the shop, mostly because it comes in good sizes, it lasts a long time, it works for road, mountain, and gravel, and it has an easy injector built into the application tube, which is easy and nice to use. Finally, you need a tubeless ready tire, and so you can see we've got a WTB Radler 40. It has the TCS badge on it, suggesting that it is tubeless ready. Again, a Kevlar bead tubeless ready tire is critical to making this whole thing work. Unless the tire says tubeless ready on it, you're going to have headaches, and so we want to make sure that we have all of these components before we start our conversion. All right, so the first step we're going to do is we're going to deflate our tire, right? So if you got a Presta valve here, you're going to push the button on the valve, unscrew it. You're going to unscrew this little lock ring. Sometimes you won't have these on your valve, sometimes you will, but it's important to take that lock ring off. Okay? And then break the bead on the tire with your fingers. And then get yourself a good quality tire lever, start away from the valve, and pull the tire off the rim. So once the tire is off the wheel, you're going to want to take the rim strip out as well. You definitely don't want to leave this on. And this could be fabric, this can be plastic, like this is a plastic one. So just make sure that's off and make sure you can see the spoke holes of your rim. If you have any debris in here, like if you have any moisture or dirt or dust, you're going to want to wipe this down. This is a brand new rim, so it's nice and clean. But you want to make sure that that tape has a really nice surface to adhere to. Then you're going to grab your tubeless tape. Okay, again, double check that the width is going to fit that interior dimension of the rim, right? We want it to be just in between the sort of where the beads on the tire are, so it sits nice and snug inside the inner well of the rim itself. You're going to find you're going to find the valve hole on the rim. You're going to start 180 degrees opposite of that. So you're going to start opposite the rim, the valve hole, find the end of your tape, and then start right in the middle, right between some spokes. You don't want that end starting over a spoke hole. You want it to be right in between. And now you're going to start stretching the tape, pulling it nice and even across the center of the rim, rolling it around, and continuing along the whole length of the rim as you pull it tight. The important thing to remember with this is that if you have a road or gravel bike, it's probably a good idea to do 2 layers of tape. Most mountain bikes can get away with 1 layer of tape because the overall tire pressure is lower in mountain bikes. Anything road and gravel, since you're running probably upwards of 30 to 100 psi, you're going to want 2 layers of tape. That ensures a nice tight seal and a good quality sealant sort of laying in the tire itself and not trying to squeeze out through the spoke holes. So once this is done, get to your starting point. You're going to find the starting point right there. Got 2 layers. And then we are going to take a knife or a pair of scissors and just cut this nice and even. And just lay that down. All right, and so finally what you're going to do is you're going to need to poke a hole in the rim, or excuse me, in the tape where the valve hole is, so you can insert your tubeless valve. Now, what I like to do is I like to heat up a piece of metal that is round and actually melt a little hole inside here. And the reason I do that is because I want that hole to be nice and uniform, and I don't want it to stretch the tape as it pushes down. So if I can get a nice even hole in my valve tape, or in my sealant tape rather, that will allow this valve to sit in there easy without putting extra undue stress on the tape itself. So you can do this with a spoke, you can do this with anything that's round and sharp. You just don't want to really use a knife, because a knife will end up cutting the tape. You can see that's a super nice clean hole that pressed valve is going to fit right inside. The preparation required for the valve is you're going to need to take the cap off, as well as the lock ring, and if your valve includes a rubber grommet, you're going to want to remove that as well. And what you're going to do here is you're going to insert the valve through the hole that you just created, pressing down forcefully so that it seats properly inside there. Take your rubber grommet, roll that over top, check your lock nut to make sure that the beveled side goes towards the O-ring. So you're going to want to thread this on. Keeping pressure on the top of the valve down as you thread. Good quality valves will be able to be used with a wrench, and so this can actually take a 3mm hex wrench, and so you can make sure that that's nice and tight. And if you wanted to make sure it's extra tight, you can actually put a wrench right here as well. But we've got that nice and snug, so that should be just fine. And so we have our tire ready. Just make sure that you pay attention to any rotation arrows on the tire itself. You want to make sure that the rotation of the wheel matches up with the rotation of the tire. And you're going to want to put this on just like you would any other tire. Just pay attention to the fact that tubeless tires are going to be a little bit more difficult to put on than traditional tires, because that bead is just so much tighter. And so if you can do it without using a tool, that's best, but occasionally you will need a tool. So once the tire is properly seated on the rim, you're going to want to check the valve location to make sure that the bead is on both sides of the valve. And what you don't want to see is this, because if you try and put air in it this way, it's going to leak out. So you want to make sure that those beads on the tires are on either side of the valve, so when you inject air into it, it's going to fill up. Okay, so what you're going to do now is you're going to hit this with air, preferably with a compressor, because it needs to inject a lot of air at once. If you need to remove the valve core to put air in the tire, you can, but ideally it's set up in a way that you don't need to do that. And so what you're going to do is you're going to hit it with a lot of air. You're going to wait for the bead to pop, and you'll hear those pops hopefully in the video. So we put air in it with the compressor. We heard the snapping of the beads going into the sort of hooks on the wheel itself, or the rim. And what you want to check for is to make sure that this bead line is even around the whole wheel on both sides. Typically you'll hear 2 snaps on each reel, and that will indicate that the beads have snapped into place. And we want to do this before we add sealant, because we want to make sure that the sealant doesn't leak out from the wheel. So you're going to want to deflate the air out of the tire, and you're going to want to remove the valve core. Okay, valve core comes out. Position the valve at about 45 degrees or so. Get your orange seal sealant. Check the instructions on there. This says for 700C tire we use 1 to 2 ounces. This is a little bit wider volume tire, so I like to use about 2 to 3 ounces just to be safe. You're going to want to put this over the valve, inject your sealant, and again, ensuring that the bead is set prior to doing this really makes it so that it doesn't leak out. You don't have any pools or any mess. You shouldn't have any mess when doing this. This is what you're striving for. So that, nice and easy. Sealant's done. You want to take your valve, tighten it back up. Most valves will include a tool. You can also just do it by hand, but it's best to make sure that everything's nice and tight. So just grab either a pair of pliers or the valve core tool and just stick it in there. Make sure it's nice and tight. And then we're going to go back over to the compressor. So what I like to do first is just give the wheel a spin, just to make sure that that sealant is nice and evenly distributed throughout the tire before I hit it with air again. Once I do, I'm going to stop, put the valve at the top. I don't like pressing down on the tire because it has a tendency to push the bead away from the rim and separate it. So I keep it in midair, grab my my compressor, fill it up, take it to the maximum PSI, which for this tire right now we're going to look at about 50. Tighten our valve, give it a spin, look, listen, feel for leaks. If you have leaks anywhere along the valve or any spoke or along the rim itself, you'll see sealant start to peek through. And the fact that we have no sealant visible and no air coming out anywhere means a good quality seal. This tire is ready to go. All right, so thanks for watching our how to set up tubeless tire videos. Again, the last thing you want to do is just make sure that that Presto valve, the core is tight. Add your cap, put the wheel back on the bike, and you're ready to go. Check out everything else we have on YouTube. We have a full channel dedicated to bike repair as well as like getting your bike ready to ride. We are located in downtown Roanoke, Virginia. At Downshift RKE are our social handles on Instagram and Facebook. Come check us out. Check our website out for all these products that we've used in the video today too. Thanks, guys.